Welcome to McGuire on Wrestling.
Allow me to reintroduce myself.
With Mike McGuire.
Stand up, son. Let me take a good look at you.
This guy's a serious professional.
You know what I want to talk about?
Yeah.
Well, the professional wrestling.
Do I have your attention now?
Done shilling. I'm done shilling, okay?
Let's get this show on the road.
I love professional wrestling.
Fans, wrestlers, promoters, everybody will call pro wrestling the pro wrestling business. Yet when business is in fact business, sometimes fans aren't too happy with it. How you doing? I'm Mike McGuire. This is McGuire on Wrestling, part of the Celebrate Wrestling Podcast Network, airing on the radio and online. Thank you so much for hanging out. Now, if you're just getting here, hold tight. It's going to be some interesting discussion today because we are going to talk about WWE's latest run of releases. 17 names reported so far as no longer currently having futures in a WWE or NXT wrestling ring. That doesn't mean that they're done by any means, though, as we're seeing new faces pop up already in different places. So we'll talk about that as well. And they already have their next pay-per-view coming up this Saturday. Already, WWE Backlash is going to be taking place from St. Louis, of course. The headlining match, John Cena taking on Randy Orton. But if I can centralize to where I'm based for a second here, in southern Alberta, Canada, Lethbridge to be specific, I want to give a shout out to my friends at Pure Power Wrestling. I was doing some tech work for them over the weekend and watching some young wrestlers trying to cut their teeth. In fact, one of those guys that was on the card is a guy that's very familiar to wrestling fans across Western Canada. He's kind of been going everywhere he can right now, and that is a guy named Scorpius. Later on this week, we're doing another indie spotlight with Scorpius, so you'll get a chance to meet him. He's kind of taken over a lot of the country here, and he is a student of the Nightmare Factory as well. So he's getting some great experience, and week to week, I always say with this guy, I just see amazing improvements with him, and he's working really hard, traveling everywhere he can to get booked and get better. And that's really what it's all about. You know, I was talking with my friend who's also been on the show here before, Kamikaze. Great guy who wrestled for years and then took a break and then came back and is still out there. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I live vicariously through a lot of these guys. For those of you just tuning in, thinking, oh, this is just some fan gibbering on about what he likes and doesn't like about pro wrestling, you're half right. You're half right entirely. But this is something I did train to do. I got kind of okay at, never got a match. And part of that was because I got hurt and that was it. So I transitioned to my radio career and things have been going great. But it's one of those things where it always sits in the back of my head. I live vicariously through these guys and girls I see do great things, and I cheer them all on. I really do. Because that's what you should do. If you're a fan of something, you cheer. That doesn't mean you can't have your criticisms. That doesn't mean you can't have your feedback. But you know what? We call this network Celebrate Wrestling because that's what we feel is the best practice, if you know what I mean. I hate that term, by the way. That's such a corporate term. But if you want to say you're a fan of something, be a fan. Enjoy it. Talk about what you like. Talk about what you don't. And unfortunately, when something like this happens, whereas WWE has released a batch of talent all at once, fans get vocal. Oh, what about this person? They never gave this person a chance. Why didn't they do this? They missed the boat on this. Sometimes we may be absolutely right, but Joe Aguinaldo is going to be here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, how we feel as fans, and how sometimes we need to separate ourselves from that a bit and realize that we still have a lot of great wrestling to watch, and if they're committed to it, these wrestlers will find places to work. So we'll delve into that. Dave Meltzer is here this week. We're going to talk all about the releases, all about the business, and we're going to talk a little bit about WWE's Backlash, which is coming up. Plus, AEW seems to be going through a bit of a shift. If you've been listening to the alternate commentary table with Mitch and Dimitri, which you really should, they brought up a great point this week. I think it was Mitch who was saying it the best, talking about how storylines are really the thread and the minutiae of what keeps him interested. You can give me matches all day, but throw in a little bit of a personal factor, and it means more. So we'll talk to Dave about that as well. Matches versus storylines, and which seems to benefit a company like AEW more, and which are they focusing on more? Not that it's the right or the wrong way. Plus, we're going to talk all about Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. They have their next show coming up at the former Maple Leaf Gardens. Our own Joe Aguinaldo is going there. So part of our conversation with Joe, we'll be talking about that big show, Northern Rising, on the way. But before we get any further, let's go ahead and look at some of the biggest stories from the past 7 days. This is the 5 Count.
You want to hear the breaking news?
We start off with that list of 17 wrestlers who were released from WWE or not getting contract renewals. Braun Strowman, Dakota Kai, Shayna Baszler, Carter and Chance, also Cora Jade, Gigi Dolan, Wolfgang, The Coffees in Joe and Mark Coffey, Eddie Thorpe, Riley Osborne, former member of Chase U, Jakara Jackson, who was recently featured in an NXT Women's Championship program, Oro Mensah, who's also had a lot of time on TV as late, Javier Bernal and Danny Palmer, as well as Shotzi Blackheart, apparently not getting her contract renewed. Now, that list of talent comes as cuts came across WWE's corporate offices as well. This time of year, like we said, WWE tends to do some budget cuts. While some names are expected to be ready to go back to work after the 30-day release clause, or 90 days for some, others are said to be done. In fact, there's several that believe Danny Palmer, after a recent comment online, is closing her athletic career and moving on with life, whereas people like Dakota Kai, Gigi Dolan, and Cora Jade are expected to surface somewhere once their non-competes dry up. Well, proving there is, in fact, a wrestling life after a WWE release, several talents are starting to pop up in different places, including Indy Hartwell, who officially made her TNA wrestling debut at the Rebellion pay-per-view last week.
It's officially official. Indy Hartwell has crossed the line.
TNA were on the ball with Hartwell's debut, including having her lined up for an appearance in matches at a TV taping this past week and already having a brand new t-shirt in store for her. Hey, speaking of t-shirts, did I mention that we have t-shirts and you can get a deal if you join our Facebook page and contact me about how you can do? I just thought I'd throw that out there. CelebrateWrestling.com. Limited shirts available. Earlier on, I was talking about our pals Mitch and Dimitri and the alternate commentary table speculating when Cody Rhodes may be returning to WWE, and well, there's a good chance that is happening sooner than later. If you look at the upcoming WWE schedule, in addition to John Cena, Cody is expected and being advertised to show up at the May 16th SmackDown broadcast. So whether or not that is his first official return or if he pops up at Backlash is to be determined. But since that show is a week away, it seems like Cody's not going to be gone too long. I know Mitch is thrilled about this. Hey, while we're plugging our own shows and t-shirts this week, I might as well talk about Legends and Champions with Andy Evans and Stephen Bennett talking about UK Rampage 1992. That was a great show to listen to. And I might suggest that you head over to WWE's Vault channel. If you're a fan of those old tapes, they've just uploaded Super Tape 4, which back in the day, WWF used to release these once in a while. They'd always be matches from different tapings that were either dark matches that didn't make broadcasts or would just be made for these shows. So a ton of great matches, including The Ultimate Warrior versus Sergeant Slaughter, appearances from Mr. Perfect, Big Boss Man, and a bunch more. And also up on the WCW YouTube channel, which WWE controls, is the full WCW 1998 Road Wild, featuring the tag team of Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff facing DDP and Jay Leno.
Leno's gonna make a cover! 1, 2, 3!
I mean, I know we talked about WrestleMania main events last week, some that delivered, some that didn't live up to the hype. Talk about a main event. Remember watching it live. So many memories. I mean, I watched it on the scrambled cable thing with just the audio playing, because I wasn't paying for that. Are you kidding? It's on YouTube. You don't even need to pay for it now. And a lot of people sent me this information for SummerSlam coming up, and yes, it's true. There are VIP exclusive premium packages which you can get for SummerSlam for the reportedly low price of $40,000 American. Now, these include things like what we saw some people doing at WrestleMania, including the walks down the aisle, or getting a photo shoot in the ring, or getting to have a suite with the actual TVU's championships dropped off by a WWE superstar for a meet and greet. I think Kevin Nash has signed up for a few of those and others. But either way, in case you're wondering about SummerSlam at MetLife Stadium, which is the two-day event, and keep in mind, it is a two-day ticket, so really that's just $20,000 a day. you can still get tickets for this event. In fact, the section that I sat in at WrestleMania 29 in the same building, and I realized that was 29, so that's some time ago now. I think our ticket was like $600 US, and we were right on the floor, like second section back there. That same ticket now going for about $1,400 to $1,600. So yeah, safe to say, if you're incredibly wealthy or would like to go into crippling debt, you too can sit ringside at SummerSlam this year. This is McGuire on Wrestling for the first week of May. Thanks for being here. And coming up next, we're going to talk more about those WWE releases with the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer, and Joe Aguinaldo and I preview Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, as well as talk about our own reactions to these releases as fans. Thanks for being here.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
The alternate commentary table, ACT, brought to you by the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. Listen, it's Mitch, it's Dimitri. We got this little pod thing that we do every single week where we talk about the week in wrestling and the way in which we do it from the other side of the railing. Right, Mitch?
I like that.
We're coming at it because we love it. We hate it. The alternate commentary table, ACT. Download it anywhere where you're getting your podcasts.
Shasha.
It's time for the Wrestling Observer Insider with Dave Meltzer, McGuire on Wrestling.
Well, here to talk a little more about the WWE releases and other business going on, of course. Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer and WrestlingObserver.com. How you doing, Dave?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. All right, let's get right into it here. 17 main roster and NXT releases that came out this past week. Some names we recognize, obviously, and then some what looked like NXT UK holdovers, in like the Coffey Brothers and guys like that. Oro Mensah, who I believe was part of that big African recruitment campaign they had, and some other stars that were maybe just getting their shot here. But out of these names here, Braun Strowman, Dakota Kai, Shayna Baszler, Caden Carter, Katana Chance, Cora Jade, Gigi Dolan, of those specifically. And maybe I'll throw Eddie Thorpe in that as well, because Eddie was getting some traction there in NXT for a bit. Is there any name here that stands out as a surprise to you over others?
Dakota Kai and Strowman to a degree. Not a shock on Strowman. I mean, a lot of the Strowman thing was his salary was really high. Not that they can't afford it, but it was kind of said to me that the salary was higher than the position they saw him in. So that was kind of like, a reasoning for him. But Dakota Kai, she's a good wrestler. And I didn't expect that one coming. And it did. There's always going to be a surprise. Baszler, I had seen her phase down. And the age is she's in her mid-40s. And WWE women usually don't last that long. So that one didn't surprised me. I was saddened to see it, but I can't say it surprised me. Cora Jade to a degree, some of them like Jakara Jackson and Oro Mensah. It's like I watched TV on Tuesday and I was just kind of like, oh man, they're about to get fired. So I just from that Metaphor breakup, it was kind of like, why are you breaking up Metaphor? And obviously they see Lash Legend as a big star. And it's like, yeah, Noam Dar's got the Heritage Cups. They didn't take that from him. So I thought, like, man, the other two, they're in trouble. And they were in trouble, yeah.
Jakara Jackson kind of surprised me from the NXT side, if we're going to stick around there for a second, because, she was recently elevated a bit. She got some shine in some programs. But, we're going to talk about this a little bit later on with Joe Aguinaldo, but it seems now more than ever, and we'd heard Triple H specifically talk about this. I think it was with Shawn Michaels or Nick Khan, one of the two, or maybe it was both of them, about breaking down the NXT process where there's going to be timelines. And there's going to be timelines where if we see us using you in the future, you stick around. If we see you being called up, you stick around. But if you're in here for X number of months or years or whatever it is, that's going to be the cut, yeah.
Yeah, after a couple of years, NXT is not meant to be the final destination for anybody. Right. It's like you go there for a year, 2 years, whatever. And then after that point, it's like, are you good enough to go to the main roster? Yes or no? And if it's no, it's kind of like, okay, you've been here for a while. I remember when Jim Ross first started developmental, his thing was at the 2-year mark, either we bring you up or you're cut. And that's a little bit too, especially now because the standard of wrestling is so high, and also because you don't get enough dates working. 2 years is actually too soon. But there is a point, where there is that point. And I was surprised with Jakar Jackson. I thought that she was relatively good. But, I mean, one of the things is that the quality of the talent for the most part on the main roster is really good. It's like almost everyone's really good, and the few that aren't are kind of like legacy people that have big names from the past and everything that are familiar, and they're going to keep them around. So relatively good without super charisma isn't really going to get you there. If you're super good, and nobody that was cut from NXT, I would go and watch, say like a Nathan Frazier or Axiom, where I go like, man, these guys are super good, right? Well, they're on the main roster now after a couple of years in NXT,
right?
But it's hard. It's a hard process. There's hundreds of people in the company, and there's only so many main roster spots. So it's just being fine isn't good enough. It's like you've got to really stand out, and like someone like Gigi Dolan's been there for a long time in a lot of roles. And I think that in her case, it was probably just like, are we going to bring her up to the main roster? She's kind of fulfilled enough roles in NXT. And I think the answer was just kind of no. And it's nobody's fault. It was just like, we feel other people are better prospects. That's all.
Going over to the main roster side of things here, you had mentioned Braun Strowman and the salary. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and again, we're obviously not in these guys' books here, but I don't know if you'd heard anything. When he was brought back the first time, was there not a salary cut compared to what he'd made before? Like,
I don't know. I know what he made before, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what he was making before at the time was really big, but
right.
for today, by today's standards for his position, that wouldn't be that big.
Right.
Because guys are making a lot more because of AEW and because of, just the fact the company's making way more money. So my gut is that it wouldn't be a salary. It wouldn't be a cut over salary if he was making what he made before. I think he would have to be higher, not lower.
Yeah. Okay. And there had been some talk too. I actually saw some pretty good support for him in a way where it's like, hey, don't feel bad for the guy. I mean, it's sad that he loses his job, but he got to do the best he could. And he put some guys over on his way out. If you look really, what happened between him and Bronson Reed and Jacob Fatu was two great examples of him.
He was good in those programs, but I think maybe the idea is that that's kind of, he fulfilled that role, and now him putting people over isn't going to be as strong. And as far as like great wrestlers, obviously he's not one of them, but the one thing with him is that. If you have like again with the size thing, I mean, he's a really big guy, bigger than almost anyone on that roster right now, right? I mean, Omos, but they don't use him at all. How many guys are really bigger than him? And there's always, to me, size is it's not the be all and end all, but it is a part of the equation. And a good big guy, is valuable. I mean, the thing with him is that, he really slowed up, his hamstring injury. When he came back from that, he just didn't have the speed, and maybe that was it, that they just felt he didn't have the speed, and the stuff he was doing didn't look great. And I didn't think it looked great. When he was doing all those runs around the ring before, it was kind of impressive for a guy that size. Now it's like, man, he's hobbling. I was thinking like, don't do those spots anymore, but they were his like signature spots that people wanted to see, but they didn't look good anymore.
Yeah. I remember in an interview him talking about it, and I got to see one of those shows. I think you and I have talked about it here on the show in the past, but he was in that program with Roman Reigns on house shows, and they were doing like table matches all across, the countries and everything else. And I got to see one of those matches, and I got to say, that to me, and I remember Braun saying this in an interview, that was kind of like his road school. And so I do think that for a time there, he was definitely that guy. But I do see what you're saying.
He was very over at one point.
Oh, very.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think he really was of late. But it wasn't like he was dying out there either. I mean, no. I honestly, like the last man standing match he had with Jacob Fatu, that was a good match. And it wasn't all Jacob Fatu. So it's not like he was terrible or anything. But he was slow. I mean, that is one thing. But yeah, I mean, like with him though, I was told it was a salary thing. So, not, and I don't know that anyone was cut over, Riley Osborne's really, really good. I don't know if people have seen it a lot, but I mean, I certainly had heard like how great he was on the house shows and everything. And his situation was not a performance thing; it was other things. And sometimes there are different reasons that, whatever, that people think that it could be a drama reason. I know in some cases they thought people weren't working hard enough in training,
right?
And I don't see that, and we don't see that. So that's kind of just other things that they look at. They're evaluating people constantly, and if you don't continue to improve, you're not super charismatic, you're gonna be on the borderline.
Well, when it comes to non-wrestling things, I don't want to get into that because again, we just don't know 100% for sure. But I mean, if you hear things, you hear things, right? And that's going to be the way it is. When anybody gets cut, people will often try and find reasons, and sometimes when you're dealing with a big company, it's not even a reason. It's just, this is the numbers. This is the way it is.
Numbers is a big part of it too. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure that Levesque was told, I don't know if it's either a dollar figure or it's a number figure, but cut this much. And so those were his decisions. So it's like nobody, I don't know that he came up with the number he had to cut. Somebody else may have come up with that, but it was his decision on who fits that number.
Well, that makes sense at least, because then they're at least giving him the option to figure out, okay, what can we do storyline, what can we do creatively? Because it seemed in some of these cases there were cuts of people that were like actively on air in storyline when TKO first took over. I seem to recall that, especially with NXT talents, like people were in stories. Indy Hartwell is a perfect example. Like she was just there.
Remember when Dexter Lumis got cut the first time?
Yeah.
He was right in the middle of a marriage thing that had gotten over. And Steph DeLander, when she got cut, Persia Parada was her name at the time. It's like, it's very clear. If I remember some of the cuts, Shawn Michaels would say, like, I didn't even know. I think in this case, Shawn Michaels knew. I think that in this case, when you look at the names, some of them had been phased out. Other, you know what I mean? Or I think that, like, again, I think Shawn probably had more of a hand in this one as far as the NXT talent went, or at least knowledge of who it was going to be ahead of time so they could clean up the storylines.
Yeah. And I think it's important to stress when we say that too, like people are going to go, oh, well, Shawn didn't like him. Maybe, but honestly, what it comes down to is, like you said, it's a number. And I don't think there's anybody that really enjoys having to cut people. You know what I mean? No. So it's not like anybody's actively going out there to ruin lives. It's just business. And trust me, as someone who's worked in media as long as I have, I've come to learn that over the years.
It happens all the time. Yeah. Some people are like, oh, this horrible company, with, giant profits. And it's like, it's not really like they couldn't afford it. It wasn't, but you are like a sports franchise with a roster, and you're always signing new people, to come up. And there's always people, like say, Roxanne Perez and Julia and people like that, Stephanie Vaquer, not necessarily this week, but we all know they're going to the main roster relatively soon or are there. And it's like, to do that, you are going to cut people from the main roster because, you don't, you know what I mean? It's like, there's a certain number of people that you want in, whether it's men or women or whatever, and then the same thing with men, it's like, there's going to be some people, that come up, and it's like when people come up, there's going to be people who are either sent back down or people who are just going to be let go, if their salaries are too high, because it doesn't make sense to pay somebody $2 million a year and send them to, or $1 million a year and send them to NXT, as a regular thing.
Yeah. And we have to remember too, like for every return, nowadays, that means somebody's got to go, and we've seen some talents come in. We've seen some new contracts signed. One thing I'm curious about, and I doubt you and I are in the books enough I know I'm not, but I don't know how much exposure you have to this sort of stuff, but like the John Cena factor, like that's got to be something outside of regular budget, isn't it?
It doesn't, I don't think with John Cena it matters, because I think the theory is that whatever they're paying him, he's bringing far more in than they're paying him anyway. So I don't think that the fact that they have a John Cena and he's around more, I don't think that is hurting the budget in any way. I think it's more just a roster number thing.
Right.
Because I mean, even if you look at, let's just say with all these cuts, you're saving, let's just say $3.5 million a year. It's a $1.4 billion company. People aren't even going to notice that difference, over the course of a year. They just paid $375 million in a lawsuit and people didn't really notice it. I mean, I noticed it, but so, I mean, the point is, I don't think it's so much, money is some of it, but I think it's more just, we have, it's just a roster number. Do we really want 350 people on the roster? No. I think the number like I last heard was 279, which is way more than you need. But a lot of them are on very low number contracts and they're, training at the PC and we don't even know who they are practically. Or they're on LFG or something. But I mean, like they would talk about Oro Mensah going to Evolve. And I thought, on the show on Tuesday, and I thought, that's not so good because if you've been on NXT for a long time and they tell you you're going to go to Evolve, that's a step downward, no matter how they try to sell it to you.
I think Matt Cardona had a great tweet, and he said this before, but he told the recently released that they have 3 options now. You can coast off of what you made. You can try and reinvent yourself, and you can go out there and totally go make some money. And if anybody's defined that, he's definitely the guy to do so. When it comes down to it, though, I mean, we just saw Indy Hartwell get picked up by TNA. And
I think TNA will probably pick up some of these people. Not all. They can't pick up all of them.
No, but there's other wrestling companies out there. There's other options, and there's other ways to do things. So, I mean, if they want to wrestle, they can still wrestle. It just might not be for as much money, obviously, and as much.
It won't be for as much money, and it'll be hard. You have to make your own bookings and things like that, and some of them are not. I have no experience in that, but you get experience in that. You learn to deal with independent promoters and become your own whatever. But yeah, I mean, for like Braun Strowman, if he wants to go, I mean, I think that he can make money wrestling every weekend. He'll get bookings if he doesn't charge too much. You know what I mean? If he charges too much, that's a different story. If he wants that, and I don't know what he wants, you know what I mean? Others will be able to get, I think the ones that have been on NXT television will be able to get bookings, not necessarily at a giant number, but they'll be able to get work. And if they really want to do it, the thing is go out there and work your ass off and improve. And, the way wrestling is right now where you hear about stuff, if somebody's going out there on independent shows and kicking ass on a regular basis, AEW is going to hear about it and WWE is going to hear about it right away. And, you can go to one of those places. I mean, none of the ones who were cut other than Osborne necessarily are people, and Dakota, are people who necessarily would be doing that, at that level. But you can improve too, I mean, and that's the key is improve or come up with a gimmick like Cardona. I mean, Cardona was, right place, right time, but he was smart. If you're, if he was just trying to be Zack Ryder, and he'd be okay, but nobody would, after a while he'd be old hat. You know what I mean? On the indie scene, he's not old hat. He's got the new gimmick and everything. So.
Multiple new gimmicks over the years since he really, he came in, he became the deathmatch king. He's the indie god, all this stuff, right? So it's, and the third option he gave, by the way, in that tweet was actually the first one, which was fade into obscurity. There's one guy that's not going to do that anytime soon is Matt Cardona.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the people that were cut are going to fade into obscurity or just give up. That happens every time there's a cut. There's a lot of people who we just never hear from again, never do indies. They came in with WWE and they're not going to work anywhere but WWE unless AEW takes them. And again, I could see AEW taking 1 or 2 or 3 or 0, but it's not going to be the ones they're going to take would be like a Dakota Kai or a Shayna Baszler. It's not going to be the NXT people unless that you go there. I mean, I suppose if you go there and just say, give me a chance, they'll, they could give you some dates in ROH and you can, show yourself. That's a possibility, and it's maybe not a bad option for some people.
Well, we will see what happens with all these releases for sure, and of course, Backlash just a week away. We don't really have, I don't know, much to really talk about with this card other than obviously the matches themselves here. Everything seems to be playing out. Do you think Cody Rhodes resurfaces at Backlash?
Could. I don't think he's going to wrestle on the show.
No, but I mean, everybody's wondering where's Cody right now, and it makes sense the whole.
Yeah, I think that I think the thing is that if he comes back, it's kind of like people are going to want him to go against Cena because that's the match that makes sense, and I think that they don't want to take away from the Orton match, by having Cody around, and actually that makes sense. And I don't know when they're going to do the Cody match. I mean, SummerSlam makes sense. Some of the overseas shows maybe they can do somebody else. But unless they can find like a Cody program, but like nobody screwed Cody other than Travis Scott, and he's not out there doing shows either right now. No. So there's no real match for Cody but Cena, and I don't think they want to rush into that one.
Fair enough. We are talking to Dave Meltzer. This is McGuire on Wrestling on the radio and online. Coming up, we talk about AEW's Double or Nothing, All In, and everything leading up to it. Thanks so much for joining us.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
CKXU-FM 88.3 in Lethbridge is Southern Alberta's true alternative radio station.
The cream of the crop! Nobody does it better.
Proudly carrying McGuire on Wrestling every week.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something different to listen to,
This is going to be a slobber knocker!
check out our NCRA award-winning lineup of programs or stream us anytime at ckxu.com.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
Back with Dave Meltzer here. We just went through some of the WWE releases. More conversation on that coming up. Plus, your thoughts always welcome on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. Just sign up there. We'd love to hear from you and get your thoughts on anything pro wrestling here. But Dave, we're going to shift over to AEW now. It's funny. AEW's had some quiet releases. You usually don't hear about big mass releases like you do unless it's one of those similar times where a bunch of contracts had started. And that was really at the 5-year point of AEW when all those new contracts had first been started. That's when we first started hearing about like bulk releases or expirations. But every once in a while, one trickles out here and there. Really, though, they seem to be doing the right thing these days, and that is not letting a lot of their business getting out and focusing more on the storylines. And AEW TV's actually been, if you're following along, not too bad as of late.
I think it's been really, really good. Overall, there's not every show is great, but I think that, 70% have been great. I mean, they're real easy to watch. It's just tough. When WWE got really hot, AEW really cooled off. And some people insist that one has nothing to do with the other, but has everything to do with the other. Mm-hmm. But AEW has to, they have to start trickling up, and they are trickling up, but there's good signs and there's bad signs. Wednesday's show I thought was a real good sign. Last night's show, not as good a sign. You know what I mean? Ratings, it's a weird one because we used to be able to judge a lot by ratings, but because of Max, it's like we can judge some stuff by ratings, but it's not as much as before.
Right.
So, and I don't even get Canadian ratings week by week anymore because at least Canadian, it's consistent. You know what I mean? Nothing's changed. I know that their first 3 months of the year were much higher than the last 3 months of last year. So that's good. But, I don't see week to week there. So it's kind of hard, to do that. I mean, the pay-per-views every month or so, 6 weeks, you get a little bit of a referendum. Okay, where are we? So things are trickling up, but they're not, they're not where they were. And I don't expect them to be where they were at any time soon. They were very, very hot 2022-ish. 2023, early 2023, that period, and they've got to rebuild, and they don't have a magic wand. It's like, CM Punk was a real big deal, and they don't have someone like that.
Well, it's interesting because when AEW moved Collision up here to USA Canada, which is hilarious to me as a network, but that's where they moved Collision to. A lot of fans still don't know this is a thing. Like, a lot of fans don't know it exists. They just figured that we can't get Collision anymore because it was already hard to watch in Canada because TSN had it on their app. You had to, it was buried, right?
Right.
So now I feel, and from what I see in feedback from our own group and from even friends of mine that talk about it, those that do watch AEW aren't watching live. A lot of people might watch Dynamite, but everything else is highlights from online. And then, like you said, the pay-per-view every month or every month and a half, 2 months, whatever they're doing now, tends to be exactly that, checking in, seeing what it is. And so it's not that fans don't care per se as much, but I really think that measuring by TV alone these days, especially in countries like ours here in Canada, where we don't have the most well-known viewing options, it's not the way to play anymore. So, I mean, that probably explains why we're not getting a big Canadian tour this year. That explains a lot of things. But when it comes down to it, the pay-per-views seem to be where it goes. All or nothing before All In. Some people saying some of these matches here kind of seem like setups for All In, and maybe they're a little predictable. Like maybe they're a little too predictable. What do you think about that?
When it comes to the shows before a big show, whether it's WWE or AEW, they're always going to be too predictable, because the smart thing is like, what do I want to see? And it's like, well, those shows should build up to what you want to see. So they should be predictable right now. I mean, or at least in the May pay-per-view, because it's the last one before Double or Nothing. Not every match, but I think the Owen Hart tournament matches, I think it should be, they could go with Will Ospreay or Adam Page. They really could go with either one. Mercedes Moné and Jamie Hayter, I think it's got to go with Mercedes Moné. Jamie Hayter's not that hot right now when it comes to, like what she had been in the past. And the reality is Mercedes Moné has been there for a long, long time, and they've avoided her and Toni Storm, for over a year now. So it's kind of like, okay, it's time. And, the stadium show, that's the show. So it should be predictable. She should win. You know what I mean? It's like if she doesn't, it's kind of like that's just bad booking. We can put Jamie Hayter over and surprise everyone, and then it's Toni Storm and Jamie Hayter, which isn't anywhere close to as big a match as Toni Storm and Mercedes, especially when you got that stadium and you're trying to get 20,000 people. And it's touch and go if you're going to get it.
In your observations and the feedback you get from your listeners and readers, do you have any idea how to answer this question? And I mean this more from a reception standpoint. Are AEW fans more match-driven or star appearance-driven? By that, I mean WWE can often get away with just having somebody show up. And that's what I want to see. I just want to see the person. I want to see the star. I don't care if they wrestle or not. Whereas AEW fans, do you think it leans more towards, seeing them is great, but I want to see them wrestle? More.
Yeah, because I think AEW is a promotion where people go to see matches. WWE, they go to see WWE. If AEW goes to a city like last night, where they didn't really advertise anything other than what Brody King and Josh Alexander, it's not going to draw very big. Like Wednesday, I go Wednesday and Saturday were two different stories. Wednesday, they really pushed Adam Page and Kyle Fletcher in that 8-man tag. And they, did their best house that they've done in a while, because they had matches people wanted to see that were great. So yes, I think that you're completely right. Like with WWE, they can just say Randy Orton's going to be there, and everyone's happy to see Randy Orton. I do think that on the Wednesday, the MJF and Hurt Syndicate stuff, they're not wrestling. I do think that stuff is helping, though. I think that's one of the hotter things on the show right now.
And I'm not saying this just because of personal bias, and the guy's been a friend for a few years and part of the show, but I told MVP, I said that's one of my favorite storylines to watch on AEW right now, and that's not.
It's good.
That's not just kissing his ass. You know what I mean? Like it's really the hottest thing going there next to what Toni Storm's doing. I think those are your two story-driven programs right now.
Maybe. I mean, it's for week to week, jumping ratings, and everything like that. The Hurt Syndicate thing it does well every week. So it's and like a lot of the matches don't necessarily do that. So that one I do think that people are I think that's like really one of the stronger things that they have, maybe the strongest in some ways.
We're talking to Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer and WrestlingObserver.com here on McGuire on Wrestling on the radio and online. Dave, we've talked a little bit about AEW. The last question I have for you today, we're going to go back to WWE on this because a lot of people are talking about this after he said it. Will Logan Paul wear a WWE World Championship by the end of 2025?
I don't think he'll win a world championship. He's already held with the U.S., right? Or Intercontinental?
Yeah, no, I'm talking world championship.
World, I don't think so. Maybe on the Raw side. I just feel that Jey Uso should lose to Rollins, and I don't think Logan Paul should be in that mix. And on the other side, I think it's Cena and Cody. I don't think Logan Paul should be in that mix either. So I would say end of 2025, no. 2026, maybe.
Well, Gunther is being kept busy by Pat McAfee. I see what you're saying about Rollins, but I'm wondering if they're just going for more of a brand dominance right now. I don't know. And I'm probably wrong. You know, God knows my predictions are often terrible, but sometimes I get them. I think it might happen. I think that Logan Paul could be the guy to take it off of Jey Uso.
I think it's too early. People will, I think.
Well, it's only May now. I mean,
that's what I mean. I don't think Jey should lose till SummerSlam, and I think it should be Seth when that happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
My thought. Seth's really hot right now. So I mean, I think that to me that should be the direction.
Mark this as our unofficial picks. There you go. Mm-hmm. All right, Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer. What are some things people can catch up on due to your newsletter?
So the new issue has got a lot of big stuff. We talked about a lot on how everything is going between WWE, AEW, and Mexico. It's really a fascinating subject right now. So that's one of the big things. We talked about the Stardom show, fantastic show with the end of the career of Tam Nakano. So that's one of the big things, and then a lot of movement and a lot of lawsuits against Vince McMahon and WWE. There's 3 big ones out there, so we talked a lot about 2 of them. One of them pretty ugly. More ring boys came forward. 3. So we went into detail what they claimed. It's stuff in the 70s and 80s, but yeah. It's hideous stuff. And, just the coverage. There's this past weekend, a lot of big shows, in Japan in particular. The first week of May is a big deal in Japan. And then, both WWE building their May pay-per-view, AEW building their May pay-per-view, AEW, different business changes, a lot of different stuff. And as well as WWE, it's like I seem to be writing more and more every week. There is so much going on between, those companies and CMLL, AAA, CMLL in particular is, it's really a hot promotion right now. I mean, I watch that thing on Friday nights and it's like, this is a hot, fun promotion. And, WWE is, I think WWE is from a storyline and WWE is really gifted with a lot of good promo guys right now. And I think that's really been helping them.
Yeah. Well, and the funniest thing is one of the best ones these days, and not that he was ever bad, but this new sensitive dad, Randy Orton, I don't think I'm quite used to it yet, but we'll see how it goes.
Anyway, he's got to be a baby face, so it's something. Cena and Orton makes all the sense in the world, right now. They're going to St. Louis, and Orton, he did lose when he wrestled Gunther a couple times, but he's one of those guys, legacy star, to where you just put him in that match and, people will accept it because they see him as bigger than he's pushed, actually. I mean, it's just like he's just been a superstar for so long that you can't hurt him. And also physically, he's just a giant. That's another thing, too.
Yeah, Randy Orton looks like he ate Randy Orton and just kept the muscle mass. All right.
Yeah, did you hear what Cena said? That Randy Orton and Dave Bautista switched bodies?
Yeah. I remember that from the Pat McAfee show there. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah. All right, Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer, going to be enjoying a little bit of vacation time next week. Lucky you, not having to sit through Backlash and talk about it right after WrestleMania here. But hey, the wrestling never stops. Until then, Dave, thank you very much, sir.
Okay, have a great week.
Still to come, we're going to look at Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling's upcoming show in Toronto. Our own Joe Aguinaldo is headed there. Plus, we're going to talk about these releases and us as fans. Are we taking it too personally?
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
Legends and Champions is your weekly fix to go old school, looking at the classic world of professional wrestling. From Hulk Hogan to the Hitman Bret Hart to the Icon Sting to the total package Lex Luger, we have it all each and every week on Legends and Champions, part of the Celebrate Wrestling Network. And it's available on a Wednesday with me, Andy Evans. See you there.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
Of course, a week away from WWE's Backlash, now less than that, honestly. as that comes up on Saturday night. We might delve a little bit into that, but joining me right now, as he usually does from time to time, from all the way in Mississauga, Ontario, Joe Aguinaldo. How are you, Joe?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm all right. Had a late run indie show last night. Not really too late, but it was an indie show that I was doing tech for. So it's a lot of lifting and hauling and putting up lights and taking down stuff and, all that fun stuff. But hey,
look at you being all manly and stuff.
Wow. Manly. I'm setting up pretty lights. I don't know about that. But
Okay.
anyway, it was a good day, a good night. Always love being around wrestling of any kind. But we're going to talk now about wrestlers that aren't around anymore. Dave Meltzer and I just delved into the WWE roster cuts that happened this past week. We saw some names all the way from like NXT UK holdovers to current day stars, people we've seen on TV just recently, out of the group. And there was a lot of them there. I don't even know if you have seen the whole list or not, but was there any names that maybe surprised you or made you sad or maybe took away an inside joke between you and I?
My God, you have to ask this?
Nah, no.
I mean, I am crushed about Dakota Kai.
I'm asking this more for the people that aren't familiar with. Do it with me now. So we
Actually,
came up with Kai and Sky. Yeah.
Yes, Kai and Sky is busted. So right now, Triple H is in my doghouse until I don't know for how long, but he's in the doghouse. So Triple H, if you're listening to this, disappointed, man. But all joking aside, though, I actually did really like Dakota Kai. I thought she was really good. And unfortunately, with the injuries that she had, that kind of sucked. I'll admit, I'm a little surprised about Braun Strowman. Like, he's kind of like your bigger than life WWE type character. So I wonder what happened backstage. But that was one I would say out of all of them, that's probably the one that surprised me the most.
Well, and Dave and I talked about this a bit, and we're not in the business of doing rumors on this show anyways, unless it's something like grievously horrible. And he said that to the extent minus one name that he'd kind of heard maybe something possibly.
Right.
And even then, it's so speculative that I don't want to get into it. He said that these all just seem like number things. And
yeah,
I can see that. And we'll talk about that in a second here. But, when you talk about being disappointed in a Triple H decision or a business decision, that's something that I think we as wrestling fans maybe have a harder time dealing with.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because the Dakota Kai thing, I do say that tongue in cheek because I do like Dakota Kai, and there are some people on this list that I do like, like Cora Jade, Gigi Dolan, I actually really dig. But that said, right? You've been following wrestling for a while now. I've been a fan for a long time. We've heard interviews. Heck, Dave Meltzer himself on multiple occasions, even on your show and other shows, has said after WrestleMania, they usually go through some sort of roster changes, right? And this is exactly what this is. And, everyone's got their favorites, but this is business, and this is not a new thing, right?
No. And, it's great to have all these returns and all these new faces show up and seeing people get promoted to main roster. Fraxium is probably the most notable one, I think, in the last couple of weeks here. But when it comes down to the dollars and cents of it, you move something in, you got to move something out.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that was the case here. So,
yeah. And look, this isn't just, WWE. This is like any sports team, any business. You're always looking at your roster and seeing where you can make cuts to, make some room for somebody else.
Now, if you go back, it was the day where WWE released a ton of talents all at once. It was the first time they'd seen that. And then they kind of cut themselves into a corner because they also went through a bunch of injuries and they had nobody.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
Yeah.
So I think they've definitely elevated the roster overall on Raw and SmackDown to a point where if someone goes down, someone can step up. There's still somebody there. We've seen that with Bronson Reed, for example, where all the credit in the world to Braun Strowman for helping put Bronson Reed over. Remember, Strowman was the first one that really ate all those splashes, right? And then we saw it happen to Rollins, and and so on. R-Truth, R-Truth. But it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, I see this. And as much as we may love our favorite wrestlers or even wrestlers that we admire and respect, because here's the thing. There's going to be a few people that these were all their favorite wrestlers. A few people.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say that popularity drops the further down the list you go. And unfortunately, it's not just about being a good wrestler. It's about being popular. It's about selling merchandise. It's about being a character that people can buy into. And we don't know internally what the numbers they want to keep are. And so David said earlier, management probably says, here's the number. You got to hit that. And so you got to cut who you got to cut.
Mm-hmm.
They're not cutting Logan Paul.
No.
Which some people have expressed bitterness towards. It's like, oh, you're going to cut all these people, but Logan Paul is just making money hand over fist. I'm like, dude, Logan Paul, as much as you hate him, draws eyes, draws heat.
And let's be, 100% real here. Forget wrestling fans. Like, okay, let's take Braun Strowman. Okay.
Yeah.
You go to any fan. Hey, have you ever heard of Braun Strowman? Nope. Logan Paul? Yep. This is like that. That's the reason why you're keeping a Logan Paul around.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, I can see that from a general population. Sure. I think what's hard for us sometimes as fans, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, please leave your comments on the Facebook page or in the comments underneath this episode, wherever you're listening, or you send me an email, McGuireShow@yahoo.com. Would love your thoughts on basically where fan loyalty takes over the reality of things. Dave brought it up, and I hate saying it because I saw him involved in a really great tables match at a house show of all places against Roman Reigns. I talked about it earlier, where Braun Strowman delivered, and that guy worked his ass off, and he bumped himself all over the place, and he really got the job of being the heel in that match, which was awesome. But he has slowed down. We've seen him run into the ring since the hamstring injury that Dave mentioned. And I saw it the other day when he was running to the ring, and I was like, oh, man, that sucks. Hopefully he can get it straightened out or whatnot. But right now, if you're a big number they can take out of the salary, it's terrible. And you and I work in media. Like, if there's anybody that knows that companies have budgets they want to meet to appease shareholders, it's you and I.
Mm-hmm.
So whether there's a personal preference or not, we almost have to just remember, hey, this isn't a guarantee in anything,
Yeah, and just to bring it back to wrestling fans, because wrestling fans compared to, say, music or movies and stuff, I know it's all entertainment, but wrestling fans are very loyal to wrestling, right? And by virtue of that, they're very loyal to the wrestlers. And, it is hard sometimes. And you could say this about sports too. It's hard, especially when you're a hardcore fan of whatever it is, whether it's wrestling or, hockey or basketball. At times it's hard to find that line between I want to be loyal to my sport, my team, whatever, but it's also a business.
As of the date we are recording this, now realize some of these are injury reassignments and things like that, okay? But in Major League Baseball, today alone, there have been, I think I've counted 23 transactions, and several of them are optioning. So, basically almost releases, they're sending them down to minors or elsewhere. That's just today,
yeah.
Yesterday, same thing, a giant list of releases or waivers or whatever, injury reassignment. Again, a lot of these are injury, but still, this happens in every other sports, every other entertainment company. It happens everywhere. It stinks because we get loyal to these and we're fans of these people. But I think that wrestling fans maybe take it a little personally to the point of, how could you? How could, and even jokingly aside, we do the, Triple H, he just doesn't get it, or Nick Khan doesn't get it, or back in the day, Vince McMahon doesn't get it. I'm wondering if we're the ones that don't get it.
Yeah, I as much as I have said Vince has lost touch in the, over the last few years, or, I don't agree with what Triple H or Nick Khan does. yeah, there's a reason why they're running WWE and we're not.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know, and it also goes with like there are probably people on the roster that like people are saying, oh, why didn't that guy get, you know, or girl get let go versus, you know, say again, Dakota Kai or Braun Strowman, right? I mean, I think part of this is also wrestling fans just being wrestling fans, and not always being happy, right? And I love y'all, by the way, people on a Facebook page. So I'm not talking about you, but other wrestling fans, like, you know, it's almost like they want to hate wrestling for the sake of hating it, and it's like, nah, this is just business, people.
Well, let's shift gears here for a second to a company that's actually bringing in a lot of talent for their once in a while shows right now as this company continues to build here. Joe Aguinaldo going to be, well, not necessarily hitting the road per se, but maybe staying in the city a little longer one night as he is off to Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling this weekend. Joe, when's the last time you went to a wrestling show of any kind, personally?
The last time, okay, so like just to give you the context. So the last time I was at a wrestling show was the last time AEW was in Toronto.
Okay.
Right? But prior to that, I think it was WrestleMania 18.
Wow.
Like I'll admit, I love wrestling. I'll watch it. I'll read about it, but I don't actually go to a lot of shows.
No.
So this year, I kind of said to myself, I really want to go, and not WWE and not AEW. I want to go to a couple of indie shows or smaller shows. So Northern Rising for May 10th, which is next Saturday. It was like, hey, these tickets are reasonable. Like, so I got, it's at the Mattamy Center, and I got tickets by the aisle where they come out.
Which the Mattamy Center is the former
Maple Leaf Gardens.
Yes. So that's huge, man.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'll admit I haven't really done a lot of research into the card, so I'm just gonna go and just have a good time. Like I just wanna feel the atmosphere. You know, like the Mattamy Center is a small venue, not very small, but it's small, it's intimate, and that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Well, tons of matches have been announced for this. They're also going to begin the MLP Legends honoring. So names like Bruiser Brody, Bulldog Brower, and Dave McKigney, Canadian Wildman, to give you an idea back in the day. So that's going to be pretty cool. But also the show itself going to feature the 20-man championship gauntlet to crown the first ever Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling Canadian champion.
Yeah, I'm actually very much looking forward to that because that's just going to be chaos.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of these names here, and they're dating the title back to like Dino Bravo and, you know, guys like, Angelo Mosca.
Oh, dear. Yeah, that's a while back.
But then names that have been announced for this, and forgive me because it's all graphics here on their website, but friend of the show, Raj Desi, the former Jinder Mahal, going to be there. The former Baron Corbin in Bishop Dyer. Bhupinder Gujjar, who if you're a fan of TNA Wrestling or others, you've seen him there. Billy Gunn is in this. Sheldon Jean, who is huge in that area. QT Marshall. PCO. Psycho Mike. Rhino. Rich Swan. Matt Cardona. Like, this is insanity.
Yeah, there's some good names on this.
You've also got stars like Serena Deeb, Kylie Ray, Giselle Shaw, all showing up for this. So Kylie Ray against Giselle Shaw is going to be for the Women's Canadian Championship.
Yeah.
You've got Miyu Yamashita against Serena Deeb. So just sit back and enjoy that one, Joe.
I love Serena Deeb. She's like one of my favorite wrestlers.
Oh,
like,
hands down.
recently.
She's great.
Yeah.
And you're going to see so much more here. So, I mean, this, to me, and these Maple Leaf shows, if you haven't watched them yet, you really should even go back on Triller or wherever and find them because they're really cool. They're, you know, you see a bunch of different talents that do different things. And I don't know, man, it's really cool to see this Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling kicking off the way it is. So, you know, we're going to have to get you to give a post-show report on here from being there.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah,
but
the other show I'm going to in May, which is a little later, and I'll remind you of it, but I am going to the Under Siege TNA show, in which is like 20 minutes from my house.
So you're going to be Maple Leaf Pro.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to watch that later on in the week. like the full show, I'll obviously keep tabs, but you're going to let us know what happens there because it's also happening the same night as Backlash.
Oh, well.
So, yeah. No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, man, wrestling fans literally have nothing to complain about when it comes to finding something to watch.
See, and it's funny because not that I'm not looking forward to Backlash, but you know, it's like kind of the one after WrestleMania. So I'm like, okay, like they're not really going to do anything crazy. But the thing is, like, you know, I'm going to get home, I'm going to put Netflix on Sunday, I'm going to watch it. Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's going to be a fun wrestling weekend.
And who knows, you might get to skip commercial breaks and whatnot. Probably not. We'll see. Either way, it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. I think that as we remember that, we just need to really appreciate the wrestlers for what they do and hope the best for them. If you're really a fan of these people, just hope they get going somewhere else. So we just saw Indy Hartwell show up in TNA, like I said earlier. More are going to be going places. Yep. Some will go nowhere, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm. Last thing I'll say about these releases is that at least now, you know, compared to, let's say, 10 years ago, you know, you do have AEW, you do have a, you know, resurgent TNA, like you've got New Japan, there's like MLW, there's all these places these people can go to still, earn a living, right? But so that's why, like, look, I'm sorry to see that these people got let go, like anybody, you know, losing a job, but I would also like to think that there are, you know, other opportunities out there for them in other companies. And who knows, some of these people might get signed back later on. You never know.
I'm still stuck on the card for the show you're going to. Dude, you're getting Jonathan Gresham versus Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, dude. It's
Gabe Kidd, Michael Oku, and Mike Bailey in a three-way. Yeah, no, you're going to be tired, dude.
Yeah.
You're going to be so tired. The Good Brothers are there. Do we know what they're doing yet?
Oh, you know, I don't care. I just love those two. So,
who knows? My God.
Like if they want to cut a promo and do like talk and shop for like 10 minutes in the ring, I'm down for that.
Oh, Cardona is in the championship gauntlet too. So yeah.
Yeah. So
it's just the one thing I will say these guys got to do is get better at putting just a one match listing. I know getting all the likes and everything matters, but QT Marshall against Josh Alexander, man.
See, and I'll admit too, like. I mean, I knew what some of the matches were, but to be honest with you, I just want to enjoy the experience. So I'm not even really like reading anything about it. I'm just going to go on Saturday and just take it all in. That's what I'm the most excited about.
And that's what we hope you enjoy doing with this show each and every week. This has been your weekly edition of McGuire on Wrestling. And next week, of course, the WWE Backlash coming in. We'll have a discussion thread for that on the Facebook page. And also, I posted a video about this, Joe, the other day here. But if you want to get on the t-shirt pre-order and you do so now before May 10th, so before Backlash, I'm actually going to be shipping shirts early because we've gone ahead and pushed through. We've got enough orders to start the printing process. And our friends over at So Normal Printing here in Lethbridge are doing a wonderful job getting those ready for us. So first shirts will actually be going out as early as this week. And again, you can find out all the details at CelebrateWrestling.com under the merch store, or better yet, join the Facebook page, find out how you can save $5 and get a free sticker with your shirt. And just message me directly. That's basically the answer. Get in here and we'll save you some money. But if you want to order off the website and pay more, that's up to you. All right. Go get a haircut, Joe.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to do the same. Two finely groomed men will be back talking with you next week. But until then, as always, thanks for listening and letting us do what we do. For Joe Aguinaldo, for Dave Meltzer, and myself, play safe, drive safe. Abyssinia.
McGuire on Wrestling. Online and on the radio. Listen to the show Mondays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time at CKXU.com, wherever you get your podcasts, and at McGuireShow.com.